All right, welcome back to the Neutral Zone. I know it's been a minute, but we are in the middle of the college football offseason, and we just kind of want to warm back up as we get ready to head into the 2025-2026 season. So this is really our offseason recap where we are now. Spring football is ended. We are very close to getting ready to be back into games, back into the college football season. So like I said, we just want to come back, let you know some of our thoughts of topics and news items that happened over the offseason and reintroduce ourselves. What's up, Steven?
Well, before we even get started, I don't think we ever even properly gave Ohio State credit on the channel.
Come on, you know
Yeah,
what
I don't
it
think
is,
we ever
baby.
did.
Yeah.
Obviously we've been doing this for like almost 3 years now. I think at least 2 years
Yeah.
for sure. We were really heavy in college football last year. We're going to continue to do it this year. Obviously, life came up. We got busy. My dad moved, so he moved across the country. So obviously it
Well,
was kind of
so I
hard. Go ahead.
I move here soon. I haven't moved yet.
Oh, okay. Well, just a bunch of moving parts, obviously, with work and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So we'll be able to kind of get right back into the swing of things, do our previews, stuff like that. But today we're going to be doing the off-season recap. So
Yes.
I have a few topics. He has a few topics. We don't know each other's topics yet. Obviously, we have our own ideas and opinions on the topics we brought today, but we kind of want to see where each of us kind of feels about the topics that the other person brings, and kind of just have a dialogue off that. So I'm gonna go first. So this was kind of one that just recently came out within the last day or two. Obviously, recording on the
I know
30th.
what this
So
one is.
um, I don't think you know what it is. I don't.
All
Um,
right. Hold
this
on. Let me
this
guess
is
then.
no, don't guess it because it's gonna be one for later. So this
Okay.
is one that only is pertaining to one conference. I want you to
Okay.
know what is your I want to know what your opinion is on the SEC now fining $500,000 for the field rushing. I feel like field rushing is like a big thing for college football and
Yeah.
basketball. Like I understand the safety part of it and like the money cost, but I feel like when you upset a big team, like field rushing is just a part of the sport. How do you feel about that?
So it's funny because I go two different ways with it. I think sometimes their fans are a little bit too eager to rush for any game. I think, like you said, it should be reserved for big games. As if you guys been with us, been rocking with us for a little bit, we got to rush the field during the Clemson Notre Dame game, and it was really cool. We got to go out and kind of talk to the players a little bit, and I won't say, but got to kick it with the players a little bit. So for fans, especially in a sport like college football, where a lot of times you have ties. A lot of those fans are students at the school. So a lot of times you have ties to those players, and there's so much passion in the fans. I like the idea of being able to rush the field. I think there's two parts to me that really matter. One, you got to do it safely, and what I mean by that is also safety for the team that is the opponent, right? How do we get them off so that fans aren't in their face and doing things like Tyrese Halliburton's dad
Yeah.
did to Giannis, right? So you're not antagonizing the opposing team, but and then also, how do you do it where it's not just every game we're rushing the field? It's truly for those special moments, for those upsets, for those rivalry wins and things of those nature. I don't think it should be completely cut out, but I think it should be few and far between for really big games. What's your thoughts?
So I mean, obviously we saw over the last couple of seasons a few big games like Vanderbilt. Who did they beat? Did they beat Alabama?
Alabama?
Yeah, so like
Yes.
that's a game I understand you rush the field for.
Yes.
But then you had a team like Colorado rush the field for I forget who they beat, but they beat somebody and it was on TV and they rushed the field.
Yes.
So like I understand certain scenarios, but I guess where do you draw the line of what's a big game and what's not a big game? Because at the
Right.
end of the day, like it's all opinionated unless you say you can only rush the field if you beat a top 10 team. Like then that would kind of be stupid. I think that takes away from it because
Mhm.
Alabama may be number 11 and a team like BYU might beat them. Like I still think that's a very big upset, so they should still be able to rush the field. But I think it's stupid. I mean, obviously the SEC is the only team that does it. I know you brought up Clemson. Clemson, they do the gather at the ball every game, whether they play Alabama
Yeah.
or if they play Citadel. So I don't think that's something the ACC will ever implement or Clemson will ever implement because that's just something they've always done. But I think it's stupid. And I like the idea of rushing the field because it gives that fan experience. Even when you're watching on TV, like
Right.
it's crazy when you see everybody, ripping down the goalposts and stuff like that after a big time win. But that's my first topic. So what is the first topic you have for the offseason coverage?
All right. Obviously, we now live in the era of the transfer portal. And I think we all know some of the big moves, Nico, and we can kind of talk about. But is there a less discussed transfer or recruitment signing that you're kind of like, oh, that's going to be a big move there? That may be something that changes the trajectory of a team.
So are you asking if like the Nico signing is the
No,
biggest
not that.
signing?
No, no, no. I'm asking, is there like a under discussed transfer pickup or move or
Oh, so
recruitment
far this
pickup or
offseason.
move? Yeah, something that isn't maybe main page discussed, but you're like, yo, that's going to be a big move. That's going to be a nice pickup for that team.
Um, I mean, there's a bunch of them. There's obviously Nico is probably the biggest and the most notable. But you have a lot of the defensive players as well. I think I think one of the two things is going to happen. I think there's going to be a positive and a negative. And not to make this completely about Clemson, but I think so many people talked about the transfer portal with Clemson, how they don't use it. And I think if Will Height, who was a top 5 edge rusher in the portal class, goes to Clemson and doesn't pan out or doesn't do anything there, then it's like
Hmm.
I'm not saying Dabo's like I told you so, because I don't think he's just going to sign him to bench him. That doesn't make sense because he's listed as a starter right now. But unless one of two things can happen, he can go in and he could be dominant, and then it could be like, see, Dabo, you should have used it, or he could go in and have a less than ideal production that we thought, and then it could be like, it doesn't really matter.
Goes in and he's dominant. Dabo can still say, "Hey, we wanted the right transfer, right?
Yeah,
We're the point was never that we're not taking transfers. It's that we are only taking impactful transfers. I'm not just taking guys to take them.
yeah.
For me, I'm going to be honest with you, and I haven't seen it discussed a lot, but Trevor Pena from Syracuse going to Penn State. I think Penn State, and we could talk about Julian Fleming and Wallace and some of the wide receivers that they had out there. They just, again, they played a game against Notre Dame where no wide receiver caught a pass. He had a very good season for Syracuse last year, 84 catches. And again, Penn State is one of those teams that is an early national championship contender, but they really need help on the outside, especially when you lose Warren. Their big play, and obviously was a tight end, but their big play receiver. They're going to need some help on the outside. We know what they have with that two-headed monster in the backfield. We know what they're bringing back with that defense. But I think to be a national championship contender, they have to have somebody on the outside. I think Pena can be that person. Like I said, coming over for Syracuse, I don't see a lot of people talking about this, but this may be a big pickup. What's your next topic?
Well, I do want to say I looked up the transfer portal list really quick while you were talking. I think one of
Uh-huh.
the big signings is going to be John Mateer, going to
Oh,
Oklahoma.
yes. Yes.
Not only him, but I also think Concepcion from NC State going to
Yeah.
A&M.
Yeah.
And then Zachariah Branch, I think, is going to be big. I think he'll be dynamic for Georgia. The only reason why I say that is because I know Georgia has lost a lot. So I want to see how they implement him into the offense. They haven't had a guy like that as dynamic as him in a very long time at the wide receiver position.
Yeah. So the only thing with Branch has been I haven't seen him pop as a wide receiver. Now, obviously, he's electric when he gets the ball in his hand. We know as a kick returner, punt returner, probably one of the best. I want to see him have a really big season as a wide receiver. I think this Georgia team, like you mentioned, again, a team that was hurting on the outside and lost some more receivers. He has a guy to be wide. He has the lineup to be a wide receiver number one for them this year. So I'd really like to see him pop.
I think if they use him in like the Tez Johnson role, I feel like
Yeah.
he'd be really solid because I think he has a really good offensive line. Obviously, it's a lot of talent around him. So, and then they already have a lot of motions and stuff in their offense, pre-designed. So I think if they're able to use that, he'll be able to be pretty good. My next topic is, I think one that we both have on here, and I want to know your opinion on it. But it's playoff realignment. How do you feel about obviously the seeding, and then also the talks about the 16 team and all that stuff?
So as I looked further into the seating, and if you guys know, basically last year, only conference champions could have the 4 seeds that got a bye. This year, so the structure of who can get in is the same. Conference champions still get the automatic bid. A group of 5 teams still gets the automatic bid. But the teams that have that automatic bye, those 4 teams can be any team. So it can be 3, 4 SEC teams. It could be there. It's not necessarily conference champions like it was in the past. As I first mentioned it, and we talked about this a little bit prior to even coming online. As I first mentioned it, I liked it. I liked the idea that it wasn't going to just be the conference champions, because again, some team may have a really good season, and we may know that this is one of the best 4 teams, but they lose to just a better team in their conference championship, and they are deserving of a bye. But you brought up a concern that is very valid, which is there going to be some SEC or Big Ten bias? Are we going to see big conference bias, especially if you're a Big 12 or ACC fan? Are we going to see 2, 3 SEC teams in just because they have that title attached to them that they're in the SEC? So I do have some concerns with that. I would have, now thinking about that, I would have liked them to keep it where it was, where it was a little bit more spread out with the conference championship. The 16 team proposal that's kind of being, I don't even know what you want to say, if it's just being kind of hinted to right now. Um, I think we're good at 12. I think, and we mentioned this when we went to 12. I think when you get to 16, we're starting to get watered down now. We're starting to get now half of the top, not I'm sorry, more than half of the top 25 is getting into the playoffs. I think anything more than 12, I think 12 may be a little much. I think if you go 16, that's too many teams in the playoffs. I think you've watered down. And when I say that, I'm not saying water down the playoffs. I think you now watered down the regular season, because that now means that there are teams that could have 2 and 3 losses that are
4.
going to get in, and they're going to get into the playoffs. And I didn't look at this, but I'm sure if we look at the 16th seed, that's a 3, 4 loss team. Like at this point, the regular season doesn't mean anything. So I don't like the idea of expanding the playoffs even further. What's your thoughts, Stephen?
Yeah, I don't like it. So before we talk about that, I don't like the seeding aspect because of the bias.
Yeah,
Now when it first happened, I went and looked at the last like 6 years to see how many SEC or Big Ten teams were in the top 4 or 5, and it wasn't super prevalent that was the case. So like to retroactively say like if we had it that way before, then they would have had it, because it's not the case. But
right.
now it's like the committee knows going forward how the bye weeks are going to work. I feel like there's going to be more biased. Like, for example, let's say that so Oregon and Ohio State don't play this year, right? So let's say
Right.
Oregon and Ohio State are both 12-0. They play in the Big Ten title game. Whoever loses that game has 1 loss now, and they've been dominant all season. Then in the SEC, I don't know if Alabama and Texas play each other. I don't think they do. But let's just say if they don't play each other, they're both 12-0 and 12-0, and they play each other. So now you have 2 undefeated SEC teams, 2 undefeated Big Ten teams playing each other in the conference championship. Then let's say
Right.
hypothetically you have an undefeated Clemson and they win the ACC and they're 13-0. Are you going to put a 13-0 Clemson in over a 12-1 Texas that lost, and then they're going
Right.
to get the bias over them? And that's why I don't agree with it, because I think
Right.
you're going to get a conference champion like a Florida State, and I understand the scenario and the circumstance, but I'm just using them as an example. You're going to get a team like a Florida State or even a Arizona State this year who may go 13-0, or Clemson who might go 13-0, and they'll get bumped out by a conference champion loser from the Big Ten or the SEC based off strength of schedule, which I understand that. But at the end of the day, when a team goes perfect, undefeated, no losses, beat everybody in front of them, they won their conference, and they do not get a bye because of, conference bias, I think that becomes an issue. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Clemson fan. I think even if it was Arizona State and that happened to them, I don't agree with that, because at the end of the day, they beat everybody that was in front of them, and the other
Yeah.
team lost. The other team could still in the playoffs, but I don't think they deserve a bye because they lost. I understand they lost to a better team, but they lost. At the end of the day, a L is L. But we'll just have to see how it plays out. I could be completely wrong, and there may be, Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, which I wouldn't be mad at. I would only be mad if it's like a team like even if Clemson goes 10-2 or 11-1, like I don't feel like Clemson should have got the bye last year. They didn't, but I don't think Boise State should have got it either. Like I didn't think they were good enough. So last
Right.
year, I get why they're making changes, but I think if Clemson had have been 11-1, they should have gotten the bye, and Boise State shouldn't have got it. I don't think there would be uproar because Clemson
Right.
is a notable team, a program. I think
Yeah.
the reason why they made change is because Boise State got the bye. At the end of the day, that's what it is. Their athletic director came out and literally said, call it the Boise State rule because that's what it is. Boise State got the bye, and now there's uproar about it, which I completely get. I understand because there's better teams behind them. Because what Ohio State didn't even get the bye, did they?
Well, but Ohio State was not so you remember it was only conference champions last year, and Ohio State was not the conference champion. Ohio State went in as an 8 seed. Remember, they had just lost that Michigan game.
But they were number 6 though.
Oh, 6 seed. I'm sorry.
So they were number 6, and y'all played number 7. So
Yeah.
if we were to have the same format we had for next year as last year, the top 4 would have been 2 Big Tens and 2 SECs. It would have been Oregon, Penn State, and then Georgia, Texas. And I don't agree
Yeah.
with that. I don't agree with that at
Right.
all. So I think it's stupid. But at the end of the day, that's just where we're moving to. I think it's better than having only the top 2 teams play. So at the end of the day, it's just something we got to deal with. But what is your next topic?
So that was obviously one of mine, but I got to change up. Is there a team that you saw take a step? And I'm going to give you some examples. I hope this doesn't take one of yours, but a team like maybe a Nebraska or Florida. Is there a team that you saw enough life out of last year that this year you're like, hey, this team may be a team that you got to watch out for? Do you have like a kind of an undercover or an up and coming team that showed you enough last year and brings back enough this year that you're at least excited for them for this upcoming season?
And this is a team that was like nowhere on the radar.
Right. Yes.
It wouldn't be Florida, and it wouldn't be Nebraska either. I was very high on Nebraska. Those of you guys who followed the channel before, I was very high on them. I would say, okay, I would say one team that I feel like is not getting talked about at all, and I was very high on them in last year as well, and has got a lot of negative press is USC. I think USC is going to be very good this year. I mean, I think they're a team that could be in that South Carolina realm at the end of the season where they're like between 13 and 20. It's like we're trying to find ways that we can find a way to get them in. I think USC could be one of those teams. I'm just trying to think of the conferences. Definitely USC though. Definitely USC is a team that I would say is Oklahoma as well. I think Oklahoma is a team with John Mateer. I think he's very good. I think he could kind of bring life to that offense. There's already a really good defense. So I think the offense is what really hindered them all season. So I would say Oklahoma and USC. Ideally, I mean, ironically, it's both Lincoln Riley teams, which is weird, but I would say both of those 2 teams. What about you? What teams?
Yeah. I mean, so and I used one. I think Florida one played much better than I thought they were last year. They ended up 8-5. I thought they were going to be like 4-8 when you looked at that schedule. They looked like a really good team, especially when Lagway was playing. I think Lagway, with another year coming off of obviously his freshman season, with another year in the system, I think this is a potential playoff team. Now, of course, them being in,
Hell no.
hear
Hell
me now.
no.
No,
You are
I'm
tripping.
gonna
And the SEC
I'm
is
gonna tell you
crazy.
why. I'm gonna tell you why. Remember, they're in the SEC East, right? So when you look at the SEC
There's
East,
no divisions. The SEC is
oh,
divisionless
you're
now.
right. You're right. You're right. You're right. But this is a team that what I when I look at the SEC next year, there's not a dominant team. I can point out a question for every team coming back next year. I think my right away, my favorite will probably be LSU, and obviously we'll talk about these as we go a little bit farther. But when you look at quarterback situations coming back, you got Carson Beck that went down to Miami. So obviously, Georgia has kind of a situation. You got a quarterback change at Auburn. You got a quarterback change at Alabama. LSU is the only really team that was prominent last year that has a returning quarterback situation. The only other team is Florida. And
Well,
again, DJ
Oklahoma
Lagway.
too. Oklahoma too. I trust him more than I trust
Well,
Clifford.
I'm only saying That is a changing
Yeah,
situation at Oklahoma. DJ Lagway is in the same system with the same head coach, with again a lot of the
Texas as
same
well.
players. No, because Quinn Ewers was the starting quarterback last year.
Yeah,
Arch
but
Manning, Arch
yeah, but
Manning is
no, no, no,
so
no, 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 no,
that's a
no.
different quarterback situation.
I agree, and
So
Tennessee's quarterback change as well.
yeah, so that's what I'm. So if I had to, at least in terms of returning quarterback, now again, do I think Arch is going to be good? Do I think Jackson Arnold might be good at Auburn? We can kind of talk about some of these situations where some of those people may pop, but I think DJ Lagway kind of showed us
What
that
about
he is going to pop.
what about Marcel Reed?
I mean, this is again
That I mean,
good.
that's a gray area, but he'll be
Yeah,
back as well. But I would prefer
but
Lagway over him, but I think he's solid as well.
and I'm not saying Florida is going to make the playoffs, but again, this was an 8-5 team last year when we thought that they were going to be a 4 or 5 win team. If they continue to take a step, if they take another step, now you're talking about possibly a 10 win team. I think if Florida's a 10-win team in a 12-team playoff, they probably make, because that means they have some big wins. This is a team that beat what, LSU and Ole Miss last year. If they have wins of that caliber this year and they're a 10-win team, they probably make the playoffs. So I
So
have Florida as probably my sleeper.
they play at LSU, at Miami, versus Texas, at A&M, versus Georgia, obviously neutral site game, versus
Yeah.
Tennessee, at Ole Miss, and versus Florida State.
So
Um,
again, if they come out of that as a 10-2 team, even if they don't go to, that's a
you need to
playoff
put some
team.
money on that, bro.
I'm not saying they're going to. I'm saying, but
That would
again,
be
remember,
crazy.
they beat LSU last year. They beat Ole Miss last year. There's no team that you just named that
I don't.
I'm going to say this
So
both ways. Every team you name can beat them. Every team you name, I wouldn't be shocked if Florida beat. Now I'd be shocked if Florida goes 12-0,
I would
but
be shocked if they beat Texas.
I
I
wouldn't be
would be
shocked.
shocked if they beat Georgia.
I wouldn't be shocked. Again, we're talking about a quarterback situation. They were neck and neck with Georgia last year until DJ Lagway got hurt.
No, I know, but I also think it's like the I don't want to use the word bias, but it's like it's the experience factor. It's like I don't think Florida is they haven't been like relevant in so long that it's hard to even picture them like doing that. And I think it's the same thing as like a team like Miami. Like that's literally how I viewed Miami last year. They were going on that run, and I didn't believe it. Like I couldn't believe it
Right.
as it was happening. And that's the same way I feel about Florida. I would love for Florida to be good again. Like I don't have anything against Florida. I just can't see it happening in
I
the
was a
SEC.
little bit of a Florida fan for a little bit.
A little bit.
For a little bit. I said a
But
little bit.
my last topic, because we're 23 minutes, which is fine. But my last topic is a two-part topic or a two-question type of thing.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
So, what team or teams do you feel like will have the biggest jump and the biggest fall off from last year relative to where they were?
I
Give
hate
me
saying
two
this. This
two teams that jump and two teams that fall.
okay. Okay. I hate saying this. I think Clemson is my early phase. So I think they go from, and again, Clemson was in the
Hold
playoffs
on.
last year.
Before you, let me turn it up a little bit. Go ahead.
Oh my goodness, here we go.
Let me turn you up. Turn
Clemson
me up
was
in
in
the
the
headset,
playoffs
man.
last year, but let's just be honest. They were a fringe team that kind of got in the back door. Not knocking. Yes, they won the ACC championship, but they didn't have a great season by I would assume by most Clemson fans barometer. Right? Yes, they did win the ACC championship, but it was kind of a backdoor situation. They needed losses to happen and all types of stuff to even get into the ACC championship, and they lost their first round playoff game. I think Clemson is steadily in that championship conversation. If we had to name 3 or 4 teams right now that I think truly have the
1
ability to
second.
win it.
Only give
Mhm.
your two jumps, and I'll give my two jumps. Then we'll do the two falls.
Okay. My next jump. Ooh, I'm gonna be honest. I think, and I'm gonna a team I've already mentioned. I think another team that you have to mention in that championship contender this year. My SEC favorite, LSU. I think LSU makes a big jump this year. They bring back so much talent. If Brian Kelly can get it all to be cohesive and work out. I think they are returning the most talent in the SEC this year. At least, and I'm going to say this from what we've seen. Right, Georgia may have 5 stars that are replacing other players that may come out and be game busters. Um, I have I think LSU truly will jump into that national championship contender conversation. If I had to talk about falls,
No, no, no,
oh,
no, no.
I'm
I'm gonna
sorry.
do my
Yeah,
jump
yeah,
first. I'm
yeah.
gonna
I'm
do my jump
sorry.
first.
Go ahead.
Okay, so my first jump we talked about earlier is USC. I think they're my
Okay.
my first jump in the Big Ten. I think they're gonna do really good this year. I think Lincoln Riley obviously is a quarterback guru, and I think based on what I've seen so far out of the Big Ten, I think this year is more wide open than last year. I think obviously you had Ohio State last year. You had Oregon, who was a preseason favorite. Now Penn State is obviously in that room as well. I think Michigan is kind of wishy-washy with Underwood. We don't really know what we're going to get from a true freshman quarterback. But outside of that, I don't know if USC plays Ohio State this year. Do they?
I know they don't play them
I know they
in
play at
Cali.
Oregon. They play at Oregon for
Uh,
sure.
I don't know. I can pull it up.
So if they are able to avoid a Penn State or Ohio State, then I think
Yeah,
that puts them.
they don't play Ohio State.
Can you let me pull up their schedule really quick?
Oh yeah, yeah. I pulled up Ohio State's. I didn't pull up theirs.
I'll tell you right now. So they play. I know they play Oregon for sure, and they don't play they don't play Ohio State or Penn State. So I think that helps them big time as far as conference goes. They play at Notre Dame. Obviously, it's a rivalry game. It's going to be tough. So that's a separate game. They can lose that game and still make the Big Ten championship. But I think the game at Oregon is going to be a deciding factor for them because I think if they're able to beat Oregon on the road, and I think Oregon's going to be a little bit worse than they were last year, obviously losing what they lost, then I think USC has a chance to sneak into the conference championship. But even if they don't, I think 9-3 or 10-2 puts them in a position to be in the Clemson, South Carolina position that they were last year to kind of come up with scenarios on how they could get in. So I think they're my first jump. My second jump, I hate that I have to say this because I don't like this team at all. But it's an obvious pick, and that's Florida State. I think Florida State's going to be a lot better this year. Would they go 2-10 last year or something
Yeah, yeah,
crazy?
yeah. I mean, yeah.
I think
So what? Okay, what would you consider a big jump for Florida State?
8 wins.
Where do you see? Okay,
8
8 wins. Okay.
wins. I would say somewhere between 7 and 9 wins, maybe 8 to 9. I think if they win 6 or 7, that's like still mediocre to me, is really bad. But I think if they're able to get to that 8 win mark and they're having to play a team like Clemson, who I think is a perennial top 5 to top 10 team heading into the season, they have to play a team like Florida, who you talked about, or a Miami, who's going to be really good, has a top 5 quarterback in the college football this season. So they play a few good teams. They play Alabama in week 1, obviously. So they have some tough matchups throughout the year. So I think if they're able to eclipse 8 wins, then we're talking about them in a lot, way different light. That's not a playoff team. That's not a playoff team, obviously. But I think they kind of
Right.
get back on track for the 2026 season. And I hate Florida State, so the fact that I'm even like giving credit is crazy. But yeah,
Gives you
I think they're a team. But I'm gonna give my first fall, then you give your first fall.
okay.
So
Ooh,
let me
I hope it's
hold
not
on.
the same.
No, there's no way it's the same. You go first,
Okay.
actually.
All right. So my first fall, I think next year Miami takes a big drop. I think they had so many close games last year where literally Cam Ward had to save them. You're talking about them losing Cam Ward. I don't think Carson Beck is Cam Ward. I don't think he's as bad of a quarterback as he looked at times last year. But again, remember Georgia led the college football in drops. But I don't think he has the magic to save them in games the same way Cam Ward did. And remember, they're also losing Damian Martinez. They're losing Restrepo.
Restrepo.
Yeah, so this is a team that, yes, they did some good things in terms of recruiting and bringing players in from the transfer portal. But I think when you hodgepodge a team together, it takes a while for it all to work out. And like I said, there was just too many close games where literally Cam Ward had to put on the cape and play Superman to save them. I don't think that happens this year. I think this is a team that, again, I don't think the bottom falls out like we saw with Florida State last year. But I think this is a team that's probably looking at an 8 win season or somewhere in that range. All right, you said one at a time.
Yeah. So my first
Okay.
fall, um,
Okay.
is I think it's I don't know I would say if it's an obvious one, but I think it's one that most people would somewhat see as understandable. I think it's Tennessee. I think Tennessee is going to
That was my
fall
okay.
quite a bit. Obviously, losing Nico, and I understand he wasn't the greatest last year, but you not only did you lose Nico, you lost, players on defense. You lost your running back in Dylan Sampson. You lost Brew McCoy, who medically retired. I think Squirrel White might be back if I'm not mistaken. I feel like he's been there forever. But
Yes.
but I just feel like you lose too much. And then the SEC, which we talked about, obviously the Georgias, the Texas, the LSUs, the Alabamas of the world, the teams like that are kind of bolstering their rosters. I feel like you lost too much. So I think, when I say a big fall, I think they go 7-5 maybe, and I
Yeah.
think that's a big fall when you're a top 7 seed. I think that's a big fall when you go 7-5. So that would be my first big fall, or my drop off there.
All right, yeah. So I guess my second one was going to be Tennessee, as I kind of thought about it. The only other team that I kind of had fringe, I think they go back to. So when we say fall, I think they go back to what we're used to for them. They had a couple good seasons. For me, is Missouri. Missouri had Brady Cook, Luther Burden, both of them now gone. And they had two really good seasons for them. I think now they're going to go back to that 6-16, right? They were a top 25 team last year, top 25 team the year before. I think they fall back into mediocrity as a team. Like I said, I probably would have said Tennessee, but Missouri was my next team. I think those two players, those two great now professional players, really saved them a lot the past two seasons. I think Missouri goes back to a 6-6, and I wouldn't even be surprised if the entire bottom falls out for them and they're a 4-8 type team next year. Who's your second team?
Okay, so my second team, before I speak on it though, people are going to immediately say that it's biased, but I want you to hear me before I say it. It's South
Okay.
Carolina. I think South Carolina. What?
Ooh,
Go. What do you?
shocked.
I'm no. So this is why I think South Carolina benefited from a lot of close wins last year, and not only
Okay.
that. So when you look at their first win against Old Dominion, they won by 4 points. You saw they beat Clemson, obviously in Clemson by 3. They could have easily lost that game. We were talking about this Clemson team as being the hottest team in college football because they racked up 6 to 7 wins at the end of the season, which I understand. But 2 or 3 of those 5 wins all came by 4 points or less. So they could have swung the other way. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Clemson fan, because I don't hate South Carolina as much as I hate Florida State. South Carolina doesn't really
Right.
bother me as much as Florida State does. But like I said, when you look at those games, a lot of people say, well, if they would have did this against Alabama, they could have beat Alabama because they only lost by 2. Or if they would have did this against LSU, they would have beat LSU because they lost by 3. The refs sold the game. But the same way that you say they would have won those games, they could have lost the other games. So they had
Yeah.
7 or 8 games out of 13 or 12 that were decided by less than a touchdown, which could have swung both ways. So you have to play devil's advocate in that regard. And when I look at their schedule for next year, we just talked about the teams that are going to be very good in the SEC. One second, my phone is bugging out. Okay, so they play Virginia Tech in week 1. I think that is a losable game. I don't think South Carolina is
It's a
way better than
losable.
Virginia Tech.
It's a
Now it is
losable game.
it is a neutral site game, so I will say I favor South Carolina in that game. They're going to have more fans in Atlanta than Virginia Tech will. But they play at Missouri. I know you said Missouri is going to be down, but I think that's a losable game. It's an SEC game. You're on the road in
So
Missouri. You play at LSU. I don't expect them to win that game. You play
right.
Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is going to be good. You play Alabama. I think Alabama is going to be good. You play at Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is as good as you are, if not better. You play at A&M. I think A&M is as good as you, or if not better. And then you play Clemson. So I named 7 games that I could see you losing. Do you lose all 7? No, I don't think you lose all 7. But I think you lose maybe 4, maybe 5. And I'm not even counting the Virginia Tech game. I'm just saying LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, A&M, Clemson. 6 games.
Now
Out of those 6, I think you lose 3 or 4 plus a Virginia Tech game. I don't think you're in a position to make the playoffs next season as you were this year.
Now, the only question is Lenore Sellers a true superstar, right? Is he a dual threat superstar? Which, again, I think he showed glimpses of last year. He's a little bit older. Is he a guy? They won't have Rocket Sanders anymore. Um, they'll still have Nick Harbor, although he didn't have a great season. But can Lenore Sellers just be a guy that, and I mean, there's early Heisman talk with him. If he's that dude, and he takes a step, then South Carolina can be very dangerous. I agree. Yes, schedule schedule will be much less favorable this year. I mean, again, I don't think you can expect to win close games 2 years in a row, but you can if that quarterback position, if Lenore Sellers is what people are claiming he is, which is he's this top three quarterback, returning quarterback next season. Do you think he is?
I don't think he's a top 3 quarterback. I think it's a case of not having it's kind of like sneaking up on a team. Like you're going to get everybody's best shot now because
Right.
everybody knows you as a top 3 quarterback or a top 5 quarterback or as the team
Yeah.
that was quote unquote the most hot team in college football. I think you're going to get everybody's best shot. You're not going to walk into Kyle Field and think that, oh, this is just South Carolina. They're the bottom of the barrel in the SEC. We don't have to really wake
Right.
up for them. People are going to wake up for you now. So I think you're not going to be able to sneak up on anybody. I can't really think. It's kind of like the Pistons this year. Like the Pistons went on that like
Yeah.
crazy win streak because
Yeah.
everybody thought they were the Pistons. People were sitting players against them and stuff. Like they thought that they
Yeah.
weren't good, but the Pistons were actually a really good basketball team this season. It's that I don't think next year you're going to get the same treatment to the Pistons because I think the Pistons are looked at as one of the best young cores in basketball. And I don't want to make this an NBA conversation, but it was just
No,
it
no,
was an
you
example.
just, yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's going to be the same circumstance. I think there's obviously games on the schedule that they're going to dominate. The South Carolina States, obviously, I think Vanderbilt, I think Kentucky, Coastal Carolina. There's games on here that they're going to circle as wins. But there's also games on here where I could see where they could get blown out or they could lose a game they're not supposed to. Like, I don't think they should lose to a team like Ole Miss or Missouri or Virginia Tech. But I could see one of those teams getting them because I don't think this team is as good as they were portrayed late in the season because of so many close wins. And don't get me wrong. I think having a close win sometimes is better than a blowout win because that Clemson win, Lenore Sellers won them the game. Like that was I mean, I tip my hat. That was a really good game, a good win. But I don't think
man went for 166 on the ground.
yeah, like I don't think that same thing happens against Clemson again this year. And I think they play at in Columbia. So I think it's going to be a little bit different when you have film on a guy, when you know the tendencies and stuff like that. I think it's just a little bit different. Now they could easily shut me up and go 10-2 or 11-1. That would be crazy. But I think this is one of my fall teams, similar to the Michigan situation that I called last year. Where I thought it was just going to be completely dumpster fire, and it ended up being that. But I don't. Obviously, it's different because they won the national championship, so it was on a way higher scale.
They lost a lot. I don't think South Carolina has lost the same amount as Michigan from the national championship season to Michigan last year. To include that team had JJ McCarthy. This team is maintaining their starting quarterback. Again, I can see it.
I will say,
but I can also see it going the opposite way.
They will. I don't know if this is the best, but they will have a top 3 or so D line in college football next year. The D line will be very, very good with the 2 edge rushers. I don't know if it's going to be the number 1 defensive line because there's a lot of good defensive lines out there.
Yeah, I was about to say they're bringing back Stewart.
Yeah, I think they'll be a good team, but I just think the schedule is going to be too much. I think the SEC is too much.
Schedule.
But that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Obviously, off-season recap. It's been a month since we've done an episode, so we're going to get back into it. Probably won't do any live shows for a little while, but we're going to do the previews. We're going to preview everybody's team. Let us know in the comment section what you guys want to see. If there's any topics or any other videos you guys like to see or any teams that you guys want us to cover. But as always, thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more college football content. And we'll see you guys next video. Peace out.